Hi everyone, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. I'm Laura, and on my channel I cover topics related to computer science, productivity, lifestyle, and career. Today's video is an extension of the video I made last week, and I want to talk about the different career options that are available to you as a computer science student. I know that there's tons of pressures on you as a student to figure out exactly what you want to do with your life, and when graduation is coming up in a couple of days or months or, even years, it can be really hard to know what you want to do with your life. So let's shed some light on what kind of career options are out there for you as a computer science student and the kind of work and skills that they entail. I promise you that there's more out there than just software engineering, so I want to help you explore these different career paths and know what you have available to you. Just to get it out of the way, I'll be covering software engineering first. So software engineering is the typical idea of what most computer science majors are funneled into. Obviously, the majority of computer science roles will also be in software engineering, just because this is where the most need and the highest demand lies. As a software engineer, your primary job is to solve problems through coding and programming, building and creating software, that kind of thing. Most companies will have some structure of how software engineers work and how you'll be assigned projects and tasks. Most companies will use a form of management called Agile, which kind of just describes the way in which you are working through tasks in 2-week increments. There's a lot of flexibility beyond that in how engineers are working, however. In terms of the type of work that you'll be doing, you'll be working in different programming languages depending on the job, and you'll be writing new features, debugging, and testing code most commonly. There are tons and tons of different programming languages, and the scope of which programming language is best or what's best to learn can be an entirely different video in and of itself. As a software engineer, you'll also be participating in tons of meetings that are called stand-ups, where you'll detail your progress and kind of discuss if you have anything blocking you or what your next steps are. You'll also probably participate in code reviews where other people review your code that you've written, and you'll also work to review other code that people have written just to adhere to best practices, and also if you have any questions or comments about the code that has been written. Another large part is going to be mentorship and working in a team. So most commonly, engineers can get stuck, as you may know as a computer science major, in debugging or just trying to figure out how to write a new feature. So there's a lot of mentorship involved where you'll be working to help each other solve each other's problems. And this is where I get into some misconceptions about software engineering. It's not just straight heads down coding. There's actually a lot of communication that goes into the role, and you have to understand how to prioritize your work, stepping up for yourself, and making a name of the work that you're doing. If you're just another software engineer on the team, then chances are that you're not going to get prioritized for promotions, or your work and features that you're putting out won't really stand out unless you can figure out how to make it stand out. This really comes down to your people skills and how you can network among other people in your team and your organization to get higher visibility within your projects. It's also very possible to switch careers down the line, especially if you want to go into the product management side of things. Commonly, a lot of product managers are welcomed, especially if they do have prior software engineering experience, just because knowing what software engineers do and how they work is really helpful if you're going to be a product manager where you're going to be working alongside engineers as well. You can also go into management. So typically as a software engineer, you're on the IC track or I don't know what it is with these cars in this area, but typically as a software engineer, you'll be on an IC track or individual contributor. This means that you're in charge of your own projects, doing your own work, and getting that done. When you want to go into management, however, you're going to be on a different track. Well, you're going to be on a different track, obviously, called management. Here, you'll not only be in charge of your own features and bugs that you're supposed to fix, but obviously you'll be managing other people, helping them along the way, and, doing what managers do. That being said, though, software engineering is a gigantic field, and it really breaks down into multiple different categories: front-end development, back-end development, low-level or kernel programming, mobile development, machine learning, AI, hardware engineering, etc. I'll do a quick explanation of what each of these parts are, but I highly encourage you to do a little bit more research to find out what best fits your interests and your needs. Front-end development will be web development. You'll primarily be working with JavaScript and JavaScript-related frameworks, and currently I believe that the most popular framework as of this video is going to be React. Some web development may also ask you to use Python and Flask, but again, it just depends on the company. For backend development, you'll be primarily working on server development. You'll be creating APIs, working with databases, and this may also involve some middleware components that connect the frontend and backend. Again, you may be working with JavaScript-related components, so Node.js and Express, but there are also plenty of other back-end development languages such as Python and Go that are really popular too. For low-level /kernel programming, This is going to be operating system level work, and you'll be primarily programming in a C or C-based language such as C++ or Rust as well. Mobile development is pretty straightforward, but you'll be working in iOS or Android development and using Swift or Objective-C if you're working on an iOS application, and Kotlin or some Java-based language if you're working on the Android platform. For machine learning and AI, this is also a newer field, working on data pipelines and optimization or deployment of already created machine learning models, and also some management of cloud applications. Again, I don't know too much, but I'm pretty sure that Python is going to be your primary language here. Another wide area of development is going to be game development, so working in C#, Unity, creating graphics, shaders, etc. Lastly, again, a field that I don't really have any experience with is going to be hardware engineering. I don't know what the primary language is, but generally if you're interested in more hardware components, mechanical engineering, then hardware engineering is probably going to be a good field for you to get into. Next is product management. So product management is working to create the best possible product in your specific niche area of expertise, and you'll work with many other people to develop features and improvements for a particular product. Your objective really is to satisfy every user out there who is using your product, and also to just be a better product than your competitors, and understanding your customer needs and what kind of features they want integrated into your product next. The type of work that you'll be doing varies depending on your team needs and what other PMs in your team are already covering. It can range from design work, so prototyping, to direct customer interaction and fielding customer interviews. But usually most of your day is likely spent in meetings talking with different teams and stakeholders or customers. There is usually very little coding as a product manager, but this can again depend on your team and how technical your role is as a PM. Misconceptions here is project management versus program management versus product management, and that product management is going to be an easier field than being a software engineer or something more technical. I won't go too much into the PM debacle because I did a video on product management in general. I'll link that in the cards, and you can watch that video for a little bit more depth and explanation on the product management role. However, I want to say that product management isn't necessarily easier than a more technical role. It uses different skill sets and encompasses different tools. That's all I'll say about product management here, but again, check out my other video for a more in-depth explanation. Next is DevOps, development operation, devops. It basically is the words development plus operations, and you're going to be a jack of all trades in terms of what you can know and what you can do. Generally, you want to make sure that everything works and is deployed smoothly across the organization in terms of an employee's workflow. And you also want to make sure that you can update all of these environments and be able to fix any issues that arise within any of these pipelines. You'll be building, testing, deploying cloud applications, and the supporting infrastructure that goes along with these cloud applications. You want to know the large cloud providers and related tools, so AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, or GCP. There's a lot of learning as a DevOps engineer because you'll be dealing with new tooling and technologies that become popular over time, so be expected for a lot of flux and flexibility in how your job is conducted. I think there are some misconceptions about DevOps in terms of its adjacency to IT work. I believe that DevOps is still going to be a lot more technical and pretty different from IT work. You'll be focused a lot more on coding and also the general environments that engineers are working in, rather than the typical IT role, which is more technical support, I guess. I'm not doing a great job of explaining, but if you take a deeper dive into the DevOps role, and I'll link some resources in the description below, you can really get to know the differences between a DevOps role and your standard IT role. Next is going to be your data scientists. It can be somewhat ambiguous what being a data scientist means, and it really falls on a scale from ML to applied scientist to data scientist. But generally speaking, you'll be working to create models, cleaning up data, and communicating your findings, and finally explaining why they matter to a team, organization, VP. You want to take a problem, find data to support that problem in either direction, and use that data to create something meaningful and useful for the team/organization, and also be able to explain or defend your results and findings. You will do a lot of coding to create models and cleaning up data, and I believe that the primary language here is going to be Python, and there's a lot of self-learning and creativity that happens. There are lots of different ways to solve the same problem, especially given a vague problem statement, and there are also tons of new ways to create models and new machine learning/AI related technologies coming out now. You will also be visualizing results and communicating those results with people, so having good people skills and also visualization knowledge, techniques, and good people skills are also super helpful here. I think it's important to not conflate data science with just being machine learning or just being artificial intelligence or being an applied scientist, because these are different and there's a lot more nuance here than there appears to be on the surface. I know that applied scientists lie somewhere between machine learning engineers and data science, and the main difference is kind of their exposure to pipelines and tooling and how they are creating models and who is creating models. Again, I'll link more resources in the description below to kind of differentiate between these different roles and figure out what is best for you. The next role that I want to cover is being a designer. As a designer, you'll be specializing in user experience or user interface, aptly named UX UI, for a software product and the overall aesthetics and design of that product. Essentially, you want to create a user-friendly and intuitive product that also matches the rest of your organization's branding. The type of work that you'll be doing is pretty standard. You'll be creating mock-ups, performing customer interviews, and presenting them results to the rest of the team. There's also a lot of close relationships here with PMs and engineers for mock-up delivery and understanding what changes need to be fixed, whether in an existing product or in a mock-up that you've created. It can also involve some graphic design and iconography. As such, a large misconception that I do want to break is that computer science doesn't involve artistic or creative pursuits. HCI in design involves a lot of creativity and also a lot of fresh thinking, so any creative minds out there are highly encouraged to look into HCI or just being a UX UI designer. I wish I knew more about UX UI when I was younger because it definitely is a career path that I'd be interested in, so we'll see later down the road if there's any switching happening there. Common tools that you'll be using involve Figma, Illustrator, and Sketch, although I know that Figma is becoming a much popular tool, especially in industry nowadays. I believe that a portfolio is pretty unique to the UX UI field, but you'll need a portfolio of your previous work to demonstrate your skills and just your general eye for design and creativity. There are a lot of sites out there that have an accumulation of good design portfolios though, and again, I'll link those in the description below. Back onto the more technical side of things, another possible offering is being a security engineer. As a technical engineer, you're working on the security side of an organization. So this can be general security, so overall security for an organization, or it can also be very specific to a particular product. For example, authentication on a website. I don't know if that's an actual thing. Your objective as a security engineer is to keep your company and also its products/employees safe from external threats. Some of your work may also be identifying vulnerabilities that exist in a current product and request fixes for those vulnerabilities from a particular team. You may also have to deal with customers who may have encountered any security issues or flaws recently related to a product or vulnerability. In terms of work, two large separations you hear about are red teaming and blue teaming. On red teaming, you'll be doing more offensive work in the sense of finding vulnerabilities and directly seeing if you can access private or sensitive information in a product that you shouldn't otherwise be able to access. Blue teaming is when you're playing defensive and you're assessing and scanning a system to make sure that it works properly and also defends against incoming threats. In combination, a red team and blue team kind of play against each other and try to see if they can beat the other team. Again, this is a dramatic oversimplification of what security engineering is, so I would highly encourage you to do a little bit more work to figure out if this role is right for you and if you're interested. You definitely do not have to be some elite hacker I'm in kind of person but security engineering, in all honesty, is really interesting, so I would encourage you to at least check out a few talks related to security engineering and see if it might be something that catches your eye. The last career area that I want to cover is research. So typically you will be going to grad school for your master's and PhD and doing research, discovering a niche or a niche to perform further research on or work into. You'll also be creating a collection of publications to your name and any cool discoveries that you may have found along the way. There are two primary paths that stem out of research. You can go into academia, where you'll be a professor seeking tenure, teaching, or you can go into industry, where you can work at a company's research lab, such as Google, Facebook, and Microsoft. A lot of companies have large research departments that typically hire PhD graduates into their program. You'll be pretty hard-pressed to go into research without a PhD, though, so definitely keep in mind that there will be a lot of schooling ahead of you. The type of work you'll be doing is performing research, I guess, and trying out new things. Generally, if you're interested in research and actually pursuing research as a career, you already have an idea of what interests you and what you want to explore. If you're starting out, however, or you're a freshman or a sophomore in college, I would start to look at professors in your school and see the type of research that they do. If any of them are interesting to you, then you can email that professor to try to get on board the research team, or generally learn more about how they got started and how you can maybe get involved too. Obviously, if you choose to pursue the tenure track of professoring, you'll be potentially teaching students and classes, so keep that in mind too if you are interested in research and academia. The biggest misconception I want to say, though, is that people think research equals academia only and staying in school forever, but there are plenty of companies out there that want research interns or full-time employees, but it does require almost always a pursuit of higher education, such as a PhD. Okay, so that was a brief but large list of different career paths and the kind of work that you'll be doing, as well as any misconceptions that I've heard about for each field. Going to college, though, I genuinely thought that computer science meant I had to go into software engineering, which was a path that I didn't actually know that I wanted to do. So I hope that this video helps shed some light on the fact that there are lots of things out there that aren't just software engineering, and even in software engineering that there's tons of different varieties and work that you can do. Please correct me if there are any details that I missed or I got wrong. Obviously, I have not worked in the industry in any of these roles, so a lot of what I have said is based off of my research, and I'd love to always learn more about the work that you're doing in a particular field. I really appreciate all the support and feedback that I've gotten in the past couple of weeks, so please let me know if you have any other suggestions or advice for me. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week for a brand new video. Bye!